Welcome back. You're tuned into now mid-morning talk, and we're heading into afternoon. So good afternoon, everybody, and please just seeing what's happening around the country. Please do stay safe, stay protected. And this is all amidst a highly infectious, contagious third wave that we are currently experiencing nationally. Um, so just appealing to everybody in terms of for your physical safety, for your health, stay safe. If you are able to work from home, please do work at home. Please, children at home, let's find some indoor entertainment and activities. Rather shop online, do the get your groceries and online, but just stay safe home, stay safe, stay at home, and appeal to all those opportunistic elements as well. Please, what you are doing is incorrect. You are bringing instability to a country that you need and you live in as well. So I'm told some of them are also students. Please have a look. This is not the way we build a country. This, what we're doing is we're destroying our present and our future. So please, this is not how we resolve. We are democracy. We have a right to protest, but we do not have a right to anarchy. We have, with our rights come our responsibilities, and every citizen is responsible to secure a peace and a safe community and environment for all. And please, by looting, you are taking away jobs, you are taking and you are stealing livelihoods. So please appeal. This is not the way forward. We need to have discussions, we need to have debates and engagements. And speaking about that, we're going to now focus on I read this in the newspaper, and my heart went out to this 18-year-old student, somebody who's full of hope in matric currently, looking at opportunities. However, she's being denied an opportunity of writing her national benchmark assessment test. And this is the benchmark assessment as a criteria that universities use when it comes to placement, especially when it comes to very limited career opportunities, especially in the fields of health sciences or commerce. So Karolyn has sent an appeal, and she says, I'm Karolyn Mujinga. I'm 18 years old. I was born at Qoza Hospital, Cape Town in 2003 to refugee parents. I've spent my whole life in South Africa. South Africa is the only home that I've ever known. I'm now in matric and one of the two deputy head prefects at Kensington High School. But I am unable to apply for the National Benchmark Exam, which is commonly referred to as the MBT for a university, because I do not have an ID book, and that her struggles have begun there. And then to assist her, as well as other refugees, the Scalabrini Center of Cape Town's vision is to foster the cultural, social, and economic integration of migrants, refugees, and South Africans into local society, perceiving migration as an opportunity. Scalabrini Center of Cape Town is committed to elevating poverty and promoting development in the Western Cape while fostering integration between immigrants, refugees, and South Africans in providing assistance. We advocate for respect for human rights and use a holistic approach that considers all needs. So joining me to discuss this issue, and no doubt Karolyn is not the only one who faces such a difficulty in obtaining an ID book. We're going to be joined by Karolyn herself, as well as Siyabulela Qoza, as well as from representing Scalabrini, we have Sally Gander joining us to understand this issue, and also to find out how widespread is this issue and what is the difficulty. So I have Karolyn. Good afternoon, Karolyn, and thank you for joining us here on Salam Media.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So, Caroline, when did your struggle begin? When did you realize that not having an ID is such I mean, it closes so many doors and it denies you access to so many opportunities. So, when has this become dire, and when has your struggle began in terms of your road to actually obtaining an ID?
When I turned 16, and all of my classmates had gone to apply for the IDs, and I couldn't because I had to wait 2 years to apply for citizenship. So when I turned 18, I started drafting emails to pro bono lawyers in Cape Town to assist me in my citizenship application. So without that, I can't apply for university at the moment because
Okay.
I need an ID number to apply for university.
I just want to welcome Sally. I'm told Sally Gander is with us as well, and Siyabulela is with us as well. Good afternoon, Sally, and welcome to Salam Media.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And hi to Caroline as well.
Hello.
And I'd like, let me just check if I've got Siyabulela, and she's representing Home Affairs spokesman. So let me just say, Siyabulela, are you with us as well?
Yes, good day. Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I am part of this conversation.
Thank you, and for joining us. So we have everybody here now. We can begin the conversation. So Caroline, so what had happened? What is the issue? Why are you struggling to obtain an ID?
Merely because my mother is a refugee. That is why I am struggling to get an ID.
And without the ID, you said, have you spoken to the universities in terms of, is there another avenue that you can write these national benchmark examinations while you're awaiting an ID?
Yes, the Department of Education said that I can write my final exams and also be resulted, get resulted. However, applying for university during the course of this year, I'm unable to do so because I need to have an ID.
Okay. So, Siyabulela, please advise us here as well, myself as well as all our listeners, in terms of Caroline, somebody like Caroline, who is born in South Africa. South Africa is her only home, having been, she was born at the Groote Schuur Hospital as well. What is the process in terms of her getting an ID, and then in terms of applying for university? If she doesn't have an ID, is there another type of document that she could use so that opportunities are not closed to Caroline? And I'm sure other learners like Caroline who would like then to are in matric and would like to then apply at universities to write the MBTs.
Thanks again for the opportunity. The South African law, as it stands, says that the child follows the status of the parent. What that means is that if a child is born of parents who are refugees, that child will then qualify for refugee identity document. If that child is born of parents who are asylum seekers, that child, even if that child is born in South Africa, that child will then assume the asylum status of the parents. In the same way that if a child is born to parents who are here on a work permit visa, that is the status that they will assume. In the case of Caroline, she does qualify for refugee identity document, and she has been okay. My colleagues have advised me that they have been in touch with some stakeholders who are working with her case to invite her to apply for a refugee documentation, which will enable her to have a refugee ID.
Can I say something?
Caroline, can you go ahead and respond?
But I want to apply for citizenship because I'm 18 years old, which is a requirement for citizenship in South Africa. Is it against the law to apply for citizenship? Is it, Mr.
Is that question you should be responding directly?
Yes, you can, Siyabulela. So Caroline says she's 18 now. and she would now like to apply for a South African citizenship because remember, her parents are refugee, but as she's mentioned, she doesn't know any other home besides South African. I'm listening to her, and she sounds like she's a Cape Townian. She has that Cape Town accent, which I can see,
Yeah,
and I can
I'm
see
tough.
she's fully,
Yes.
yeah, I can see she's fully Cape Townian. She does not know any. So how do then children who are born here, have never left South Africa, have been here? At what point or what age can they then apply for South African citizenship?
Okay, that's a separate question to the question of having an ID.
Mhm.
Now, for an ID, you do need to apply, and you would follow the status of your parents. When you want to apply for citizenship, then that's a separate process. At the moment, that section is only dealing with citizenship retention and also citizenship renunciations. So at the moment, what you can do is to apply for the refugee ID, and when the citizenship is open, she can then apply at that point. Because we have closed, temporarily suspended that service, because we are looking at the risk-based approach of which services can we offer to people who are in South Africa in our offices, whilst we limit the number of people coming to our offices, and also trying to control the spread of this COVID-19. So that temporary suspension is one of the things that one of the services that we have temporarily suspended because of that. She would be
Okay,
able to apply
so
for
I
it
just want to,
once
yeah,
the service is resumed.
Siyabulela, so I just want to understand the citizen. So to apply for citizenship, that is temporarily suspended, and this is just purely due to COVID. So probably once vaccination rollout has been successful, and hopefully, in fact, COVID positive numbers decrease, and that once again that avenue and those services provided by Home Affairs will resume, and then Caroline would be able to then make application and apply for citizenship. Am I correct in that in my understanding of this?
Yes, the department constantly looks and reviews the services that it can offer based on the alert level of the lockdown. Now, there are a number of services which are currently available to people wanting to access Home Affairs services, and we have temporarily suspended some services. And this service that she's looking for, it's one of the services that is temporarily unavailable. As soon as we open, she is more than welcome to apply for that service.
Okay, so I need to understand, and maybe Caroline, you know, once she has a refugee status document, will that make her eligible to apply at university for this national benchmark assessment?
Are you asking me again?
Yes. So either so will that document then, are you in your knowledge, does the refugee document that Caroline can apply for, will that then allow her to be eligible in terms of writing the national benchmark assessment examination at universities? Siyabulela, you can go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I know that we work very closely with the Department of Basic Education. So all of the issues and challenges that would face people who are born of parents who are foreign nationals are taken care of through a circular between the two departments. I'm not quite sure if
With the
if we
Department of Higher Education as well, because this
yeah,
would
I
now
mean,
fall under Department of Higher Education.
yes, I would then need to go and check and verify. I'm just aware of what we are doing in the partnership that we've got with the Department of Basic Education.
Okay, so I'd like to bring Sally Gander on now, and she's head of advocacy and legal advisor at Scalabrini Center Cape Town. So Sally, tell me, how widespread is the issue in terms of obtaining documentation for especially learners or children or teenagers like Caroline, who South Africa is the only home they know. They've integrated in South African way of life. I mean, they South Africans by heart, but yet they still looked upon as being born of refugee parents and not as South Africans.
Thank you, Mariam. Look, I'm very interested to hear what Mr. Qoza has to say on this. So, as you've mentioned, there are, or as has been mentioned by both Caroline and Mr. Qoza, there's various pieces of legislation. The one is the Refugees Act. And so Caroline is entitled to follow the status of her parents, which means that she should be entitled to join her parents' file, and if they are recognized refugees, then she would be recognized under that file. Once you have a refugee document, you are entitled to apply for a refugee ID. The Department of Home Affairs has not offered that service since the beginning of the national state of disaster last year. And even before that, the service was haphazard at best. So there were many people that would wait many months to get their ID document from the refugee reception officers. So that's the one thing. The second is that Caroline was born in South Africa. Presumably her birth was registered in accordance with the Birth and Deaths Registration Act, which means that she has probably got a birth certificate. I see she's nodding her head. And then she's lived her whole life here. And so that means that Section 4(3) of the Citizenship Act would apply to her. And what that section says is that if you are born in South Africa, if you have never lived anywhere else, and if your birth was duly registered, and if the parents to whom you were born were neither citizens nor permanent residents at the time of your birth, then you are entitled to citizenship by naturalization. And that provision, Section 4(3) of the Citizenship Act, when it came, it was regulations had to be passed in order for the proper forms to be provided at the various civic home affairs offices across the country, so that someone like Caroline could go and make application for citizenship by naturalization. And when Home Affairs passed the amendments to the Citizenship Act that made that happen, they never passed the regulations, or they never published the regulations, which meant that people couldn't go and apply for citizenship because there was no form. And so what then happened is a number of children, or they weren't children, they were young persons, who qualified for citizenship by naturalization, took the Department of Home Affairs to court. They were represented by the Legal Resources Center, and they won. And what they asked for in that litigation was simply for, one, they wanted to be recognized that they would be citizens, because they ticked all the boxes in Section 4(3). And the second thing they said is, not only do we want you to recognize us as citizens, but we want you to make the forms so that others in the same situation, such as Caroline, can apply. And that case was won years ago. And Home Affairs was supposed to make those regulations. I think that the deadline, and the court gave a number of years for Home Affairs to do so. The deadline is passed last year. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but I can look it up when you go to other speakers, and I'll give you that exact date. But Home Affairs didn't comply. They didn't pass those regulations. And so what the court had said is, until you publish those regulations, which gives the forms so that people can apply, you must accept applications on affidavit. So that would mean that someone like Caroline should be able to depose to an affidavit. She can go to a local police station, or to a kind of local lawyers, anything, who will then stamp it, depose to an affidavit showing how she complies with all of those requirements that I just mentioned. There's about 4 of them. And then she can submit that to Home Affairs on affidavit, and she should be given citizenship by naturalization. At Scalabrini Center, we've been assisting people with this. And even before the national lockdown, more than 6 months before the national lockdown, we had submitted applications with clients on affidavit. We offer free services, and Home Affairs did nothing. Those applications are still waiting, and so what I would be interested to hear from Mr. Qoza is, he says that there's a risk-based approach, etc. This isn't people walking into an office with the potential to spread COVID. Applications can be submitted on email through scanning an affidavit. You're not putting anyone at risk by submitting an application on affidavit. And so, we've got at least 25 people that we've assisted with such applications, but Home Affairs is not responding to them. And their excuse, and I don't think it's a very good one, is simply that the national lockdown doesn't allow them to do so because they're only offering limited services. These are young people at pivotal moments in their lives. They're 18 years old, and they're expected to remain sometimes without documentation because it's difficult for them to access the documentation of their parents for one or other reason. But their lives are put on hold because Home Affairs has not offered the forms for them to fill in, because they've not published the regulations, and because they are now not offering a service supposedly because of a risk-adjusted approach. So that's what I would say with regard to this group of vulnerable young adults at really pivotal moments in their lives.
Thank you for conceptualizing this and highlighting the challenges, as well as bring to the fore court cases, as well as acts, as well as highlighting rights that they have. So, Mr. Qoza, can you please respond to Sally? Her first part, she said, even now with the documents, just obtaining a refugee ID, people are struggling, even though that service, as you've mentioned, is operational. People are struggling to access that service. And also, as Sally has mentioned, the right to apply for that citizenship is now promulgated into law. And it's not a matter of somebody has to walk in and create a risk. This is, as Sally said, things that could be done electronically so that the process can be fast-tracked, and then only when somebody needs to come in physically, they can get them any. Is there a way that the department is now going to manage this process better so that, as you've said, people like Karolyn are not in a vacuum, or their lives are not put on hold? Because I see in Karolyn, I see a young South African. I see a South African who is willing to contribute positively to us, to our beautiful country, and we need people like Karolyn in our country. I mean, she's a young aspirant, matriculant, wanting to study, wanting to contribute to South Africa. So, what is a plan of action from Home Affairs to assist many people like Karolyn, as well as the applications that Sally has put forward as well, Mr. Qoza?
Yes. So to apply for a refugee ID is available online. People can send their applications to this email address, enabledocument.casm@dha.gov.za.
And okay, so Karolyn, I hope you got that information from Mr. Qoza. And then Mr. Qoza, look, once the level risk level 4 has been adjusted, will Home Affairs be looking at, in terms of the Citizen Act that has been now law? The court has, according to Sally, put this in terms of processing those applications, especially for this group of young adults, in terms of getting their citizenship. So this opens up other opportunities, because when I'm looking at bursary opportunities as well, because many bursary opportunities at universities are then specifically for South Africans, and then they become excluded because they're not South African citizens as yet. So once our risk level has been adjusted, will the Home Affairs be looking at seriously assisting with the process of these young South Africans? They are South Africans. They've brought up here. They were born here. They lived here. They go to school here. They attend school here. In terms of granting them citizenship,
The department does this regular review of services which can be offered at each alert level. We have done it since the beginning of the alert of the lockdown last year. We will continue doing it, and as and when circumstances on the ground allow for it, we will resume or suspend services. That is what we do on a regular basis.
So I've got a message from Lucy M, and she says, so many young kids are in this situation. The government expects these young kids to be on their parents' file as refugees. There are also kids who have lost their parents in the process, and quietly right. And I think, you know what, this we need to have a longer debate. We need to engage. Thank you. First of all, I thank you for coming on, Mr. Qoza, and availing yourself. But I think you can take back that this is a huge issue that's affecting many young refugees who want to be South Africans, who have so much to give to this country, to add value to this country. And I think this should be on the agenda in terms of how can we assist these youngsters on their own merit, on their own strength, so that they can contribute positively to South Africans. Because looking at Karolyn, I can tell you, if I'm conducting that interview, she's through and through a South African. I can feel it in her blood and I can feel it in her veins. And Karolyn, I'd like you, in conclusion, you can say a few words, and then I'll give the platform to Sally, who does amazing work to assist the refugees as well.
I was going to say that Mr. Spokesperson spoke a lot, but said nothing. So basically, at the end of the day, what I conclude from this is that I should apply for a refugee ID, basically. And once everything gets back to normal, then I will be able to apply for citizenship. That's what I get from this. I started a petition for Home Affairs to make provision for us matriculants to apply for citizenship, to make provision, to open up the immigration section only for matriculants, refugees born in South Africa who are in matric. That's what my petition is for. That's what I'm petitioning for. So I don't think I can declare victory, because I'm petitioning for citizenship, not for a refugee ID. And I don't think that I should get a refugee ID for short term, just for university, because I should still think after university, I still want to get the driver's license. I still want to do normal things as a South African citizen. I don't know when COVID is going to finish. I don't know how things are going. Only God knows how things are going. And I feel that they should make provision. I don't think this is done.
So Karolyn, from our side at Salam Media, this was your platform to amplify your petition for yourself and all matriculants. You had Mr. Qoza here listening, and he is still listening. So hopefully he will take this back to the department in terms of, let's see if provision can be made. So I won't say it's not a victory. I don't say it's not a victory. I said you are closer now. You have a platform. You had Mr. Qoza's attention as well. So hopefully this will get the ball rolling, because I think that's what we do here. Let's connect everybody and let's see we can get progress. And Sally, in conclusion, what would you like to add while Mr. Qoza is listening as well?
Thanks, Mariam. Look, just to amplify what Karolyn said, but also to note what Mr. Qoza said. So, number one, I will acknowledge that the Department of Home Affairs on Friday, the 8th of July, put out a statement which is titled "Invitation to Dependents of Refugees who are in matric or wish to further studies or have an employment offer to apply for IDs or travel documents." And that email address that Mr. Qoza mentioned is enabledocument.asm@dha.gov.za. I will write it in the chat as well. They're asking that you email that email address and you provide certain documents, and then you'll be able to get, it's called a refugee's ID, and it's only valid for the same amount of time as your refugee document is valid, which is usually 4 years at a time, but is sometimes less.
Which I think-
So Home Affairs, I will acknowledge they did do that. Maybe they did it in response to having to come on this show today, because I know that I got
true.
notification on Friday too. But well done for doing that, and I hope that they make that service available more broadly, because there are a lot of refugees that need IDs. It's not just matriculants and dependents. So that's number one. Number two, the problem with this citizenship matter has existed since before the lockdown. The lockdown has certainly exacerbated it, but we have had clients who've waited far too long and not had any response from the Department of Home Affairs. And so to simply blame the lockdown now is a cop-out. And I believe that Home Affairs and Mr. Qoza can do better. We should be protecting these young citizens and really showing or embracing the fact that they are citizens and are able to contribute to South African society. And the Department of Home Affairs should enable that. They shouldn't create barriers. And at the moment, the unreasonable delays in the application for citizenship, including the fact that there are no forms and no regulations, create barriers. They don't enable. Thank you.
So, Mr. Qoza, you heard both from Caroline as well as Sally, and hopefully you're going to take this back to the department as well in terms of how best we can speed up this process and assist Caroline and many youngsters like Caroline with refugee documents. But the ultimate aim is to get citizenship. Thank you so much for being with us, all of you. Good afternoon, and hopefully we can have a feedback session where, Caroline, you can then show me in the near future not only your ID, refugee ID, but your South African citizenship. So hopefully with the next time I connect, you're going to show me that good news. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here on Salam Media.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go for a short break, and then we're going to, on our NPO segment, we're going to be acknowledging Abdul Kader, brother Abdul Kader, who is fondly known as Uncle Babu, and Salilo, my producer Salilo, as well as our CEO Ponti Malitsani, have been visiting Fordsburg as well as Southgate, and we're going to do a live crossover to check and let us know updates, what is happening